Hello, everyone. I'm Howard Weiss. Today, we're going to discuss some ideas on how to effectively run a program advisory committee. Joining me today is Mr. Tom Tebby. Tom, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Howard, for having me. I really enjoy talking about how advisory committees can benefit the school program.
Tom, can you do me a favor before we talk? Tell everyone a little bit about your background.
Okay, Howard, I'll be happy to do that. I think two of the most important things I could mention at the outset here is that number one, I have served as a PAC committee member in past years, number one. And number two, I've had the opportunity to interview members of various PAC committees throughout the country at probably a little over 200 schools in the last 10 or 12 years. Also important maybe to this conversation is the fact that going through this very quickly, Howard, is that I was a technician at one time and a contractor at one time. And that's when I served on a PAC committee. And then an instructor in technical education for over 2 decades. Finally went back to school, became the dean of a technical college, and then eventually district superintendent over 5 technical colleges in the state. So HVAC has been my game, and I have seen what a good advisory committee can do for the quality of the programming at individual schools.
So you've had an opportunity to run a meeting, attended as an administrator, and as the consumer who's interested in hiring and partnering from that school. That's great. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Tom, I think one of the things people want to know is the purpose of a program advisory committee. Too often a teacher's hired, handed a set of keys and told, good luck with your PAC meeting. What is a program advisory committee?
Well, the general overall purpose of a program advisory committee is to help guide and strengthen an HVAC program in a particular locale. And who better to do that than the local stakeholders in the school that will actually benefit from the graduates within the program. So keeping that in mind, that should be the driving force behind wanting to have a good advisory committee. If you think of an advisory committee as just something you have to do to comply with either federal, state, or other school regulations, then you're not taking the full benefit, because the advisory committee should be one of the best assets that an instructor has for his program. They can do so many things. Did you want me to mention some of those now or
Sure.
later? Well, some of the simple things that an advisory committee can do for a school, they can actually help with recruitment into the HVACR program. They can attend programs that are held within the schools. They could participate equally as well in some of the career days that are sponsored by the local schools. They can help with placement by either hiring the students directly or marketing these students through various agencies and so forth within the community. So a very important part of the job. Another thing that they do that they're really not conscious of, that participating in an advisory committee, you're actually adding some integrity to the HVACR program locally, because the community sees industry involved in the program, the students see industry involved in the program, and that is a tremendous asset regarding the perspective, the opinion people have about the local programs, is the involvement of local business and industry in that program. They can help with formulating an on-the-job training program within the school, a shadowing program, or whatever it may be. You say, well, that's hard for the high school programs, and that would be difficult, but they could assist in finding summertime employment for the high school students that are participating in HVACR programs. And above all, what advisory committees do is they once a year do an efficacy report, if you will, on the school. That means they're looking at the equipment that the school has, they're looking at the curriculum, they're looking at the audio visuals that are available and so forth, and they're making sure it's all consistent in the sense that it provides the opportunity and the skills that the students will need to find jobs locally and other places in the country. So they're teaching current technologies. And what contractor, wholesaler, distributor wouldn't want really well qualified students coming out of the schools?
That's great. Now I got a question. I think this is going to be the heart of the conversation. Most instructors want to know, what am I supposed to do at a meeting? What are some of the things we should be doing? I've been to meetings where basically people say you need to sign this form and leave in 10 minutes, and others who do a really detailed overview of the program and ask for your feedback. So what suggestions do you have for running a well-run meeting, and how long should the meeting be?
Well, let me just back up, if I may, for just a second and say that, advisory committees can serve as guest speakers at the within the schools. Students need to hear what employers are looking for in the way of technicians after they graduate. They can help get the school involved in local trade shows where the students get exposure and so forth to the local wholesalers. They can help develop tool programs for the school. So what they can do is only limited by the participation and the thinking that the instructor puts into the program. As far as setting up a program, I would just like to say one of the most important things that you can do to make it well worth the time of those that you're asking to participate is have a well-defined agenda. Don't leave it to the point where I'm coming to this meeting and I really have no idea what this is all going to be about. It has to be relevant to them, not just the school. And they need to know how much their input is appreciated, when they come to school. Second thing about an advisory committee, if you have a well-defined agenda, you're going to keep the meeting relatively short. A good packed meeting, if you will, could be just 1 hour, maybe 1.5 hours. And generally, you're only required, if you're receiving federal funding, to have 2 a year. You can have more, but the requirement is 2. So think specifically about what you want on that agenda. Give everyone a chance at the meeting to speak. Don't let any one person monopolize the conversation. That makes it awkward and people don't want to return if their voice is not heard. Have everybody in the room sit in a manner, make your layout so that everyone is facing one another and get to really meet one another and talk amongst one another, sort of the interaction we're looking for. If you have a secretary, have her collect a business card, or if a person doesn't have a business card, ask them to write down their name and their contact information. And during the course of the meeting, have those copies made so that everybody leaves with a copy of everybody else's business cards so that they can start, the advisory committee, developing relationships with amongst themselves. Have a name tag for everybody. Not all of these people know each other, and I think we all know very well how we like to be called by name. Remember the Cheers show? You want to go where somebody knows your name. Put that tag on. Let them get familiar with one another. Don't let anybody be a stranger in the group, as I said. Another thing that I think is real important is to take pictures. Take pictures of the advisory committee. Get the names of everybody in those pictures. Put it on social media. Put it in the local newspaper or some of the trade journals. Let the community know that these people are participating. Other contractors will see this information and they too will want to join and be part of this advisory committee because all of these people are getting recognized for the contribution of their time and energy and talent toward building a better program at the school. They'll also probably realize, other contractors and wholesalers, distributors, technicians, that these people are going to be in a prime position to see all of the students when they graduate. So give them recognition. They're given time, they're giving talent. Let's give them proper recognition today. With social media being what it is, that should not be too much of a problem to do. And I think
one thing I'd like to ask. So some of the meetings I go to are very well defined. They tell us how many hours are in the program, what it covers. Do you suggest that instructors start off by assuming everyone there hasn't been there? I guess my question would be, shouldn't an instructor take the time to really explain the length of the program, the courses offered, and what someone should be capable of before they graduate?
Yes, if let's just say this is an initial meeting, a craft committee is being formed for the first time. Then part of that meeting, the agenda would be for the instructor to explain to the participants in the meeting exactly what the purpose of this is, The meeting is all about what their roles will be as serving on the committee, the time that they have to serve on the committee, whether it's a 1 year, 2 year, tenure, and then definitely the time that they're going to have to contribute to the committee. And what was the other part of your question?
Well, I always like this is just me. I always like to know what I'm buying. If I'm a contractor, I'd like to know what have they been trained in and what will they be capable of?
Well, the answer to that is probably the primary role of the people on the PAC committee. Their primary role is to know exactly what the curriculum is at the school. So that should be a part of the meeting. A tour should be given so that they can see what type of equipment is being trained on, how modern it is, and if there's any gaps as to what is being used in the field today and what the school has to offer. So as I said earlier, when I alluded to the efficacy report at the end of the year, and I'll kind of go back to that now, if you don't mind, what the PAC committee is going to do, they're going to look at the curriculum and see if it coincides with the type of training that the students need today in the program. They're going to look at the audio visuals and make sure that they're current. They're going to look at online programs or blended programs. They're going to look at the type of equipment. They're going to look at the length of the program and whether it satisfies the number of hours, satisfy the training that the students are getting. They're going to be looking at, like I said, at the audio visuals. They're going to be looking at what it costs to go into the program. They're going to be looking at the length of the program. So their biggest responsibility is to sign off. Yes, this school is doing a good job. They have all of the resources. The program is laid out in such a way with reasonable hours that these people are going to come out of that school well-trained to supply the graduates that we need for our businesses to grow. So that's a big part of their job. And that all should be explained to the committee initially, and then subsequent meetings, the agenda would be a little bit different.
So, Tom, let me ask you, who would you like to see attend? Who should instructors be targeting in their local community?
Well, that's a real good question, Howard, when it comes to who should attend. Don't haphazardly, I would not recommend anybody haphazardly just try and get a bunch of names together in order to satisfy the commitment of forming an advisory committee. I would put a little thought into it and think, who are the contractors' leaders? So some of the different organizations, such as someone well-known in the heat pumpers organization, or the local RSES chapter, or the air conditioning refrigeration contractors associations. Look to see who the leaders are in that community. Then look at some of the technicians you've heard people talk about at the supply houses. You need some representation there. And then if you have, besides the distributors, look who the biggest distributors are. The ones that not only would like to share in what the school is doing, but the ones that are capable of giving other support to the school as well. And then do the same with manufacturing. Because ultimately, we're hoping the manufacturers may form a partnership with the school. But all of these things, like I said earlier, having an advisory committee can be a tremendous asset to the school if it's done properly. If it's done haphazardly, no. So you pick all of these names and you say, okay, these are the people I would like to serve. Now here's the don't. Don't send them all an email. Don't send them a text message. Go see them personally at their place of business or invite them to come visit you and explain to them what this is all about and how they could help serve the community and the school by giving their input, into the program. People like personal contact. You get a lot more done that way. They'll get an idea of your demeanor and how sincere you are. And by going out personally, you're already telling them, look, this is important to me. It's worth the drive. It's worth the visit. So will you work with me on this? At that point, I would assure them you only have 2 meetings a year. They'll be concise. They'll be deliberate. There will be an agenda. We will not waste your time. That's what you should do. So you should have contractors. You should have technicians. You should have wholesalers, and you should have distributors, at least, on the committee. You want to know when you should have this meeting?
Yeah, one of my questions is, what is the best time to hold a meeting?
Well, all of those that have had PAC committee meetings, this is a topic of a discussion for all instructors all across the country. that they express that they have difficulty getting people to come to the meetings and they're driving to the school. The answer to that, this is a universal answer in most cases. Have the meeting as early as possible. You got to remember, these people have full-time jobs and they're devoting or volunteering their time and talent to the school. So let them come early. That's number one, because they can come, spend an hour at a meeting, and then get back to the business at hand in case a technician doesn't show up. What type of calls do we have? Dispatching, all of the other things associated with it. If you don't have it early, as the day evolves, they get entrenched in many other things, and sadly they call and say, look, I really wanted to come today, but since some things have developed and now I'm sorry, I can't make it. You can avoid that by having it early, number one. Number two, please announce to them that you're going to have some type of a continental breakfast or something for them to eat, so they don't have to worry about stopping on the way in to get a little something. I'm sure the school has some money in their budget. If not, I would suggest it's well worth your while if you have to take it out of your pocket. And another thing is keep your committee at a reasonable number. If committees get too large, generally it's hard to have a meaningful meeting and there's a lot of disruption. So if you just had 5 or 6 people from these various areas that could work together, it would be great. The students love to see it. And I might also add, I realize that everybody's possibly not close to the facility, but you have to have one meeting a year at the school itself, on campus. And the reason is obviously from what I said before. If they're going to evaluate, they being in the PAC committee, the program, the efficacy of the program, the curriculum, the type of equipment used, the safety features of the program area, they have to be there to see it. So you tell them up front that just once a year. Now your other meeting could be a Zoom meeting or some other type of meeting in that regard, but one meeting a year, they all have to get together at the school.
So Tom, let me ask you, so if you have a meeting and you see no participation, what are some of the things you could do to get people, because the goal of it is you're really trying to find out what can I do to improve the program and help you improve your businesses. Are there specific things instructors should do to get more audience participation?
Well, there's 2 things that encourage advisory committees to want to participate. And I mentioned one of them earlier. You get an advisory committee and you want them to be passionate about what they're doing. The one thing you have to do is show them that their input is truly relevant. From time to time, you're going to have to let them report to them, if you will, that their suggestions were actually followed or their recommendations were actually followed through. And also, it's good at an advisory committee meeting, if an administrator cannot be there for the entire meeting, they should attend. And I think the administrator should want to let the advisory committee know that they really appreciate their time and talent, and that also encourages them to come. But the biggest thing is, and I'm guilty of it like I think every other human being, I like it when my name is out there associated with a meaningful project and other contractors are seeing I'm getting these accolades for serving on this, and this is some of the things that we're working on at the school. I might want to really be a part of that. I'm a contractor and the public is seeing this as well, who's working with the school. So that's 2 ways of doing it. Plus what I said, keep the meetings short, keep them meaningful, follow through on the recommendations that they make. And if you can't, let them know why, that it's contrary to state policy or school policy or whatever. But show them the progress that they're making from time to time. Who wants to go to a meeting and sit there for an hour and a half, 2 or 3 times a year, and never get any feedback until any of the suggestions or recommendations that were made were never implemented? That would be sad. That would discourage me. So you have to tell your administration, if we have a packet committee meeting, we're going to have to start listening to some of the things they're saying, because that is their purpose. That is their purpose, and we have to recognize that. And if we can't follow through, we need to tell them why.
Well, Tom, these are some great suggestions you've offered. I realize we can't cover every idea for every possible meeting, but I really hope this helps instructors have some ideas on how to run a more effective meeting. I'd like to thank you very much for your time.
Well, Howard, I really appreciate being a part of this. And I know that the ESCO group and HVAC Excellence has a lot of information online that goes much deeper into what we talked about here today. The last thing I would like to say is that the HVAC program committee, advisory committee, is a valuable tool, and instructors should take advantage of that tool and use it as much as they can. It will not only help students find jobs, help students get placed, it will keep the curriculum current, and the instructor will find himself in a better relationships with all the suppliers, distributors, technicians in the community. I think it's well worth the effort to form a good, strong advisory committee. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you, and we appreciate it. You have a great day.
Take care.